Here I'm just going to explain a little bit before you see my terribly messy house. I know I've shown you before, but I've never really explained because it's a little bit deeper than just me not feeling like picking up. And I know I always talk about how awful the last deployment was, and probably because it really was. I mean, it was like probably the worst year of my life. But just because raising kids, small kids, is hard anyways, and to do it by yourself is terrible. And I know there's a lot of single moms out there, and I don't know how they do it, so okay, I'm actually going to read to you. I had to write it down because I was having such brain farts that I was like, oh, I just need to write this down. So where was I? So when your spouse gets deployed, there's the obvious hardships. You know, the fact that you won't see your husband for a whole year, and you don't even know if that's the last time you will ever see him. This last deployment, I got to talk to him once a week at 5 in the morning, which was better than his first deployment. His first deployment, we only got to talk once a month, if that. Like, we even went like 2 months, I think. So, another obvious hardship for people to see is doing everything alone, or we hope we could see that. But what people can't see is the details of raising a family alone. It is God's design to have a mom and a dad raising a family. God made us different for a reason. The mom is the soft, gentle one, and the dad is the firm, manly one. Women were not designed to be firm and manly, especially not me. I make a really bad man. Let's see, playing the role of a man is so emotionally taxing. I can't really put it into words. Okay, so some personal hardships for me was the fact that we moved 3.5 hours away from both of our families to be a youth pastor. Before Chad left, I was already an emotional wreck because, first of all, I was a stay-home mom, and for those of you that don't know what that's like, just lock yourself in your house with an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old, and you'll know. Yeah, it's really hard. And second of all, I had the guilt of thinking I was the worst youth pastor's wife ever. Ian had major lung problems. He was infected sick the second we moved to Bartlesville. We moved there when he was 6 months old, and he literally was never sick until we moved there. Turns out we moved into a mold-infested house, which is probably why I was so depressed, because they say that mold causes severe depression. Anyways, because Ian was so sick, he required a lot of sleep, so our kids would be in bed by 6 o'clock every night. Well, youth group started at 7, an hour after my kids were already asleep. So most Wednesdays, I couldn't go. You could argue that it's just one night a week, but no lie, every time I would keep him up late, he would get an infection. Every time, and I am not being dramatic. It is my job to keep my kids alive, so who in their right mind would throw their child into the fire? And I felt like people couldn't see this, because when they saw Ian, he looked so happy and full of energy. First of all, the energy was really steroid power, because of all of his breathing treatments and prednisone and all that good stuff. And second of all, if you have kids, you know how excited they get when they are having fun with people. It's called adrenaline. But when they get home, it is on. Ian would wheeze and cough and throw up, so we would have to hurry and get him a breathing treatment on him. Meantime, because he's struggling for air, he's hacked off, which makes him scream like you wouldn't believe. Anywho, so because I had such a sick child, I couldn't be that involved with the teens, which made me feel so guilty and worried that the pastor wished he didn't pick us and blah blah blah. So this kind of sets the stage for the state I was in before he left. So here I am, my best friend, the only one who completely understands me besides my parents, leaves me for an entire year. And I'm with a screaming sick child and a screaming teenager child. She's still a screaming teenager child, and she's almost 7. I'm with them from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. with no family in sight. So I'm even going to leave out a bunch of nightmarish details and get to why I'm such a bad housekeeper. So 6 months after Chad was gone, I had a breakdown. Let me pause this. So I was I was hanging in there for 6 months, you know. It was just really, really hard. But after 6 months, I guess it just all started coming out. Because my friend Dee Dee and Amber, they were, you know, and especially Dee Dee, she would just come over all the time and help me. But they actually moved. So my two friends that I had actually moved away. So now I was like alone. Like so alone, it's hard to even explain. So I had no friends and no family, except for my YMCA family, which was completely amazing. If it weren't for the YMCA, I would have completely... I'd probably be in an eating disorder clinic, and I'm not kidding. I mean, if it weren't... Because they had a nursery in the mornings and in the evenings, and that was the only way I really made it, was the YMCA. Because they, you know, I'd get a break from my kids for 2 hours a day, which was, if I didn't have that, I mean, and then the YMCA, they're not supposed to, you're supposed to be in the building when you have your kids in the nursery. Well, they actually, like, talked to the higher up, and they let me use the nursery hours, which they were open for like 3 hours, but I would only leave my kids in there for 2, usually the most, because they were so young and I'd have to feed them and put them down for a nap. But anyways, so they let me take one of the times, like once a week, leave them in the nursery, and then go do what I needed to do. So that's actually when I would clean, is when my kids were at the nursery, at the YMCA. And then if I was caught up on cleaning, then I would just go sleep or sit and do nothing or go to a movie or something like that. So, so anyways, where was I? This is why I wrote it down, but then I was just getting tired of writing. I was like, oh, I could get through this faster if I just said it. So, so my friends move, and I'm just like so alone. And, so I went and stayed with my sister-in-law and my brother in the city for 3 whole weeks, and that was really fun. So, but I didn't want to overstay my welcome, so I moved back. Well, when I moved back, I turned down my air conditioner, you know, to save money while I was gone. Well, when I came back, my whole house was completely covered in mold. Like, all the walls were green. The curtains and everything had literally like a blanket of fuzz like over it. I mean, it was a nightmare. I came in and I was just, I mean, the feeling of panic was like completely unbearable. And so I just started cleaning it. And at the time, I actually had a couple teenagers living with me. But they worked the night shift, so they'd sleep in the day, and then I wouldn't see them at night. So they literally were just there to sleep. But my friend Stacy, that one that was living there, she was actually there and awake that day. And so she was helping me clean it up. And of course, I didn't break down yet, because here I am again, wishing I could be this strong person for my, you know, my teenager friend Stacy, because we were, oh, that's another story. We were youth pastors in Ponca City too, and I got really close to this one teen, Stacy. And I felt like I was the worst person for her at the time, because she needed someone too. And so I didn't break down because she was there, and I wanted to be strong for her. So so we cleaned it up together, and I just threw everything away. Like I didn't want to clean the blinds. I just threw all the blinds and stuff like that away. And so then finally, like, through cleaning this, and my kid's sick, and then now I know like why my kid's sick. So here my child is pretty much dying from like curdling the lungs, and I knew it was from the mold. But I couldn't really do anything about it, of course, because my parents, I think, were on vacation at this time. So I was like really alone. Like, my parents couldn't even come.